As if the pandemic wasn't scary enough, we now have a killer on the loose. And that brings me to the new film, The Omicron Killer. Let's jump into the review of that right now. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the channel today for another review. And today we're going to be reviewing the new film, The Omicron Killer, which is available on demand and digital June 25th. So, first thing first, I had no clue that this was a sequel to a previous film. So, I do feel that, number one, I don't feel like I missed much in order to enjoy this film. I feel like you definitely could come into this film not seeing the first one and you'll be okay. But I just want to bring that to your attention that you might want to go back and check out The COVID Killer, which came out in 2021. It also has like a companion theme song and music video as well to it, the COVID Killer song, which I think is the same song that's in the credits for the Omicron Killer. But hey, that's no here nor there. If you feel like you need to see all of them, definitely check out the COVID Killer, because I definitely think this is setting up for a trilogy now. But nonetheless, I checked out the Omicron Killer as the first of the potential 3 trilogy of this, brought to you by director, writer, actor, executive producer, all the hats in the world, Jeff Knite. And I gotta say, my second mistake here, and really not checking out the first one, not knowing that this was a sequel, isn't really a mistake. But I will say my true mistake here is that I came into this film taking it a little serious. And that's a mistake you don't want to take, because by no means does this film ever takes itself serious. So like, upon watching this film about 30 to 40 minutes in, I'm kind of like, man, this isn't good. There's just a lot of things that I just didn't like. But then I realized once this film was very self-aware of what it is, I sat back and I was like, okay. The film is entirely corny. It is campy. And honestly, I feel like it's just another installment into what I consider this new subgenre, or maybe it's not a new subgenre, but it seems to be overly popular because I'm seeing these type of films pop up more and more in terms of like erotic horror. Because like, you know, when you have like a boob in there, or you have like the over sexualization of women, and it serves no purpose, it's kind of like, all right, I get they're beautiful, but like, why did we need to see them nude here? What was the point here? And I've been seeing this so often that I'm kind of like, make it serve a purpose besides it just being like eye candy for folks, you know? But again, it might be a subgenre that may be very popular, which is why it continues to be a thing in some films. But that's not here or there. That's just me letting you know, like, that's what you can expect in this film. But the real draw from this, because I'm not familiar with Jeff Knight's work, the title obviously caught my eye. But, you know, I got to call it for what it is, man. Anytime you see Felissa Rose in the film, you got to put respect on it. She's done and gave so much to the horror genre that you got to respect any title that she's affiliated with. You kind of say, like, I need to check it out. And, you know, shout out to the legendary Bruce Willis. But you obviously know, with everything that's going on with his health, he put out a lot of films towards the later parts of his career. And he may not have done much in them, but you gotta call it for what it is. If you saw Bruce in the film, you're like, an action film with Bruce Willis, I'm checking it out. And I think like Felissa kind of holds that sort of weight when it comes down to the horror genre. Like, if you see her name on it, you probably need to check it out. But yeah, there's a lot of other folks involved with this film that you may or may not know. Lynn Lowry is one I was excited to see. But nonetheless, like, yeah, it's a collection. There's a lot of folks involved with this film, because some people have very, very minimal roles. But, you know, I guess Karen and Sharon and just getting people involved in some capacity and getting them a credit was kind of the goal here. But it is truly about, because in this film, you have a copycat serial killer and killing his last victim on the anniversary death of the original killer. Decides to retire from his life of murder, but his retirement doesn't last long, because attacked by vicious thugs left several wounded and hospitalized. The Omicron Killer returns, hell-bent on vengeance as he embarks on a new reign of terror. So the thing with this film and the thing with the name of this film is that like it's definitely like a play on the pandemic. We had the original COVID-19 and then the variant came. And I think this film is definitely trying to tell a narrative about that, because it's like when the Omicron came out, it definitely was kicking people's ass and everybody was really worried about this one because this one had different side effects and it was like the second wave and so on. And so this is sort of the thing with this. Like after you done had the original COVID killer, now you got this Omicron coming out like saying like, yeah, it was good. I'm here now. You know what I mean? So like you hear a lot of the commentary around that within the film. Even to like some of the news anchor talking about it, and like the news anchors are off the rail. That was my first indication that this film was not taking itself serious. Cause I'm like, no news anchor would ever talk like that. But because that's, again, the film was self-aware and it never ever tried to take itself serious, and I'm okay with that. Tons of jabs at whatever it could in terms of the narrative behind the pandemic and COVID-19. But yeah, there were some hilarious moments. Like I enjoyed the kids beating up the killer. The demonic coat that was in the film, it really didn't do anything for me. I did enjoy its little narrative and take on everything. I thought that was funny and different and unique. And I think like when you take a look at like the cast, like, you know, anything that Felissa's in, you're gonna keep your eyes glued on. She's great in it. When it comes down to Pew Shadow, who is our copycat killer, COVID killer, the Omicron killer, whatever you want to call it, I wasn't really buying into sort of this slasher because, you know, my slashers, I like my slashers like a certain way. However, I don't think that the Omicron killer is trying to sit in the likes of like Johnny, in terms of like in a violent nature, which recently released, and trying to be that next new legendary killer. I think that, like, you know, this one is more of a parody of sorts, and it's just less serious, less off the gas, and I'm cool with that. You know, that's perfectly okay here. But the real highlight of this film, as you would expect, happens to be the person who wears all the hats, and that's by all means our director and Jeff. Jeff, you would imagine, would make sure that he has one of the most interesting characters, and his character, Jimmy, Brock, Flash, we want to call him, one of the investigators and trying to figure out and get this killer. He has great moments up and down the board, hilarious moments. He takes the campiness to the max. You know, he gets all the one-liners. I think that, like, by all means, do you enjoy everything he brings in this film. I even have a little moment at the end where he's having some hand-to-hand combat, and I'm like, where did that come from? But like, okay, we'll go with it, you know. But you know, the film, I'm not mad at it. It's just a measure of expectation here. Like, I say this all the time. Like, I enjoy Sharknado. By no means is anybody going to Sharknado saying this is like the best shark movie I've ever seen. But because Sharknado knows exactly what it is, you can enjoy it for what it's trying to give you instead of your expectations of what it is, you know? And this one just does a really good job in being self-aware on that notion. So, yeah, there's flaws in the movie. Don't get me wrong. There's production things that can obviously be heightened. There's no reason for me to nitpick any of this right now, because I think the film is very indie, but at the end of the day, like, it knows what it is. Like, yeah, there's moments that I thought, like, editing, especially some transitions, could have been a lot better. Some shots went a lot longer than they needed to be. Sound was good. You know, the gore obviously could have been heightened, but that's a very expensive part of the budget, so you always play a little more friendly on that. I wish I had felt a little bit more from the COVID killer itself. I felt like the moments of it felt very underwhelming. Even the fact that, like, I know that this film is maybe even going as far as a parody to everything around it, but like, I still would have loved to feel a little bit of the intensity, because like, when you had performances such as Felissa and Lynn, who really brings the intensity, you're like, why do I feel more energy from them than I felt from the killer? And I know the killer is without any dialogue, but you can have a presence without saying anything. I think Johnny in A Violent Nature recently is a prime example of how like you see like you can see a killer and not have to say anything, but you feel its presence. And I will also go as far as saying somebody like Art the Clown. I mean, I know that's kind of a bizarre example, but Art the Clown's another new recent slasher that, you know, asserts his dominance on screen. But I do think, because with there being a 2 post-credit scenes, I do think with the trilogy coming, I think things are gonna get turned up a little bit. I think they kind of know what they want to do here. I think they kind of want to put this in gear, and I think that's where it's everything that I'm kind of critiquing here. I think we're going to see some vast improvements down the line. So we'll see. But listen. I think, again, if this sounds like something down your alley, if you like a good horror film that doesn't take itself serious, campy, some really, really hilarious one-liners because they're cheesy, you know, when you out here talking about Terminator or just any of those sorts of different things that you heard in previous, I mean, there's even jabs at like Freddy, and you even got the Halloween theme, like the film, and they even talk about copyright issues with it. Like, I'm telling you, man, the film does not by any means try to be serious. And every single time it gets a moment to do or say something corny, it goes for it, and it goes to the max. And I'm not mad at that one bit. So, I don't know. Check it out. See what you think. The Omicron Killer, available on demand and digital today, June 25th. Jump in the comments. Let me know your thoughts about it once you do. And as always, stick around for more reviews and content here at Big Go Belt Media very soon.